In the quiet streets of a small town, the evening was settling in, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink. The air was cool, filled with the scent of autumn leaves and the distant murmur of a gentle breeze. Sarah, a young girl of 16, wandered aimlessly, her stomach growling with hunger and her heart heavy with despair. Her clothes were tattered, and her eyes, once bright with hope, now held a deep sadness, a reflection of the hardships she had endured. Homeless and alone, she had been pushed to the brink, driven by desperation to do something she had never imagined herself capable of. The corners of her lips quivered as she approached the corner store, her last hope for a meal. The weight of the world seemed to press down on her shoulders, each step a reminder of her bleak reality. Memories of a happier past flickered in her mind, warm dinners with her family, laughter echoing through their small but cozy home. Those days were long gone, replaced by nights spent sleeping in alleys, under bridges, anywhere that offered a semblance of shelter. As she stood before the store, the glow of its neon sign casting a soft light on her weary face, Sarah felt a pang of guilt. She had never stolen before, never crossed that moral line. But hunger and desperation can blur the boundaries of right and wrong, and tonight, survival trumped her conscience. With trembling hands and a pounding heart, she pushed open the door, the bell above it jingling softly, signaling her entry into a world where she hoped to find salvation, even if only for a moment. Inside the store, the air was warm, filled with the scent of freshly baked bread and the faint aroma of spices. Shelves lined with colorful packages and glistening produce seemed to mock Sarah's hunger, each item a tantalizing promise of the sustenance she craved. Her heart pounded in her chest, a drumbeat of anxiety and fear. She glanced around nervously, her eyes darting from one end of the store to the other, searching for any sign of the owner. The store was mostly empty, save for an elderly couple browsing the aisles and the store owner, Mr. Thompson, a kind but stern man who was known for his fairness and unwavering principles. Sarah took a deep breath, trying to steady her trembling hands. She picked up a small loaf of bread, its warmth seeping into her fingers, offering a fleeting sense of comfort. As she held it, memories of her mother baking bread filled her mind, the comforting smell, the laughter they shared, now a bittersweet echo of a lost past. Her hands moved on their own, slipping the loaf into her jacket, the action swift but clumsy. She felt a surge of panic, her breath catching in her throat as she imagined the consequences of being caught. The fear of punishment warred with the gnawing hunger that had driven her to this moment. She turned to leave, her steps quick and silent, but as she neared the door, a firm hand grasped her shoulder. "Stop right there." Mr. Thompson's voice was calm but authoritative. Sarah froze, her body rigid with fear. She turned slowly to face him, her eyes wide with terror. The bread slipped from her jacket, falling to the floor with a soft thud, a damning piece of evidence of her desperate act. Mr. Thompson's gaze softened as he looked at her, seeing not just a thief, but a young girl on the brink of despair. Sarah's eyes welled up with tears, a silent plea for understanding and mercy hanging in the air between them. Mr. Thompson's gaze bore into Sarah, not with anger, but with a profound sadness. His grip on her shoulder was firm yet gentle, a paradox of authority and compassion. "Why did you do this?" he asked, his voice soft, carrying the weight of genuine concern. Sarah's lips trembled as she tried to find the words. She had imagined this moment so many times, but now, face to face with the store owner, her voice seemed to fail her. The shame and fear coiled around her heart, tightening with each passing second. "I'm sorry," she finally whispered, her voice barely audible. "I was just so hungry." Mr. Thompson's expression softened further, his eyes reflecting a deep well of empathy. He saw beyond the act of theft, recognizing the signs of desperation and need. He knew hardship, having faced his own battles in life. His heart ached for the girl standing before him, a mere shadow of defiance and frailty. The sound of sirens in the distance grew louder, a harsh reminder of the impending consequences. Sarah's heart raced, her eyes widening with panic. "Please," she begged, her voice cracking. "Don't call the police. I can't go to jail." Mr. Thompson hesitated, torn between upholding the law and offering mercy. He glanced at the clock, the seconds ticking away, each one a reminder of the decision he had to make. The sirens grew closer, their wail piercing the quiet of the store. Just then, the doorbell jingled as the police officers entered, their presence commanding and authoritative. Mr. Thompson looked at them, then back at Sarah, his mind racing. In that fleeting moment, a decision was made, one that would alter the course of their lives. He stepped forward, his posture resolute yet kind, ready to speak on Sarah's behalf, ready to turn the tides of fate. As the police officers stepped into the small store, the atmosphere thickened with tension. Their uniforms gleamed under the fluorescent lights, a stark contrast to Sarah's disheveled appearance. Mr. Thompson, standing protectively beside her, took a deep breath, summoning the courage to follow through with his decision. Officer Reynolds, a seasoned policeman with a stern demeanor, approached. "What seems to be the problem here?" he asked, his eyes shifting from Mr. Thompson to Sarah. He could sense the unease in the room, the silent plea for understanding. Mr. Thompson cleared his throat, his voice steady but laden with emotion. "This young lady here, she made a mistake," he began, his eyes never leaving Sarah's. "But I don't believe she's a criminal. She's just a kid, trying to survive." Sarah looked up at him, her eyes wide with surprise and gratitude. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. The kindness in Mr. Thompson's voice was something she hadn't expected, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Officer Reynolds studied the girl for a moment, his expression softening slightly. He had seen countless cases of petty theft, but this felt different. The desperation in Sarah's eyes mirrored stories he had encountered before, stories of hardship and survival. Mr. Thompson continued, his voice gaining strength. "I've decided not to press charges. Instead, I want to give her a chance to make things right. I want her to work here, learn responsibility, and understand the value of honesty." The officers exchanged glances, their initial rigidity melting away. Officer Reynolds nodded, a hint of a smile touching his lips. "All right, Mr. Thompson," he said, turning to Sarah. "You got lucky today, kid. Make the most of this opportunity." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes, a mix of relief and hope washing over her. She nodded vigorously, her voice choked with emotion. Thank you so much." As the officers left, the weight of the moment settled in the air. Mr. Thompson turned to Sarah, his gaze warm and understanding. "This is your second chance, Sarah. Don't waste it." For the first time in what felt like forever, Sarah allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. Sarah's first day at the store dawned with a mix of trepidation and cautious optimism. The early morning sun cast a golden hue across the neighborhood, a symbol of new beginnings. She stood outside the store, her heart pounding in her chest. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what lay ahead. Mr. Thompson greeted her at the door, his warm smile a beacon of reassurance. "Good morning, Sarah," he said, his voice gentle. "Ready for your first day?" Sarah nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes, I am." She stepped inside, the familiar scent of the store now a reminder of the promise of redemption. Mr. Thompson began showing her the ropes, explaining the various tasks she would be responsible for. "You'll start with stocking shelves and cleaning up," he said, his tone encouraging. "It's not glamorous, but it's honest work." As Sarah got to work, she found herself slowly easing into the routine. The rhythmic motions of organizing products and sweeping floors became a soothing cadence, a stark contrast to the chaos that had defined her life for so long. She found solace in the simplicity of the tasks, each one a small step toward rebuilding her shattered self-worth. Throughout the day, Mr. Thompson kept a watchful eye, offering guidance and support. He showed her how to handle the cash register, how to interact with customers, and most importantly, how to carry herself with pride and integrity. His patience and kindness were a balm to her wounded spirit, a constant reminder that she was more than her mistakes. During a quiet moment, Mr. Thompson shared a bit of his own story. "You know, Sarah, we all have our struggles," he said, his eyes reflecting a depth of understanding. "I wasn't always a store owner. I had my fair share of troubles too. But someone believed in me, gave me a chance. And now, I'm passing that chance on to you." Sarah listened intently, feeling a connection to Mr. Thompson's words. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen and understood. She realized that she wasn't alone in her journey, that there were others who had faced adversity and emerged stronger. As the day drew to a close, Sarah felt a sense of accomplishment she hadn't experienced in years. The exhaustion in her body was a testament to her hard work, a badge of honor for a day well spent. She looked around the store, seeing it with new eyes, no longer a place of fear and shame, but a haven of hope and possibility. Mr. Thompson handed her a small envelope as she prepared to leave. "This is your first day's pay," he said, his smile proud and encouraging. "You've earned it, Sarah. Keep up the good work." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as she accepted the envelope. It wasn't just money, it was a symbol of her first steps toward a brighter future. "Thank you, Mr. Thompson," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "For everything." As she walked home that evening, Sarah felt lighter than she had in years. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time, she felt ready to face it. She had been given a second chance, and she was determined to make the most of it. Weeks turned into months, and Sarah's life began to change in ways she had never imagined. Her daily routine at the store became a source of stability and pride. She found herself growing closer to Mr. Thompson, who had become more than just an employer. He was a mentor, a guiding light in her path to redemption. One crisp autumn morning, as Sarah arranged a new display of seasonal goods, a familiar figure entered the store. It was Officer Daniels, the same police officer who had responded to the call that fateful day. His presence brought back a flood of memories, but Sarah steeled herself, determined not to let her past define her present. "Good morning, officer," Mr. Thompson greeted warmly, glancing at Sarah with a reassuring smile. "What can we do for you today?" Officer Daniels returned the greeting, his eyes briefly meeting Sarah's. "Good morning. I'm here on my rounds, just checking in on the neighborhood." Mr. Thompson nodded, continuing his work behind the counter. Sarah felt a knot form in her stomach as Officer Daniels approached her. Sarah, right? He said gently. I'm glad to see you here. Mr. Thompson mentioned you've been doing well. Sarah managed a small smile. Yes, sir. I'm trying my best. Officer Daniels' gaze softened. You're doing more than trying, Sarah. You're succeeding. I wanted to stop by and see how you're doing. It's not often we get to see the positive outcomes of our work. His words struck a chord deep within Sarah. She had always feared judgment and condemnation, but here was a figure of authority offering her kindness and encouragement. Thank you, Officer Daniels, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. He nodded, his expression thoughtful. You know, when I arrested you that day, I saw something in your eyes, a spark of hope. I'm glad to see that spark has turned into something real. Keep going, Sarah. As Officer Daniels left the store, Sarah felt a surge of emotions. His visit was a reminder of how far she had come and how much further she still had to go. But it also reinforced the belief that she was not alone in her journey. She had allies, people who believed in her and supported her. Later that evening, as Sarah and Mr. Thompson closed up the store, she couldn't shake the feeling of gratitude that had settled in her heart. Mr. Thompson, she began hesitantly, I want to thank you for everything. You've given me a chance to change my life. Mr. Thompson looked at her with a gentle smile. Sarah, you've done the hard work. I just provided the opportunity. Remember, everyone deserves a second chance. You're living proof of that. Sarah nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. I never thought I'd be here, feeling this, hopeful. It's all thanks to you and people like Officer Daniels. Mr. Thompson placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. It's thanks to you, Sarah. You took the chance and made it count. That's something to be proud of. As Sarah walked home under the canopy of golden leaves, she felt a profound sense of peace. The path ahead was still fraught with challenges, but she knew she had the strength and support to face them. She had been given grace and had embraced it fully. In that moment, she understood that redemption was not a destination but a journey, one she was proud to be on. As the months passed, Sarah continued to thrive under Mr. Thompson's guidance, finding not only stability but also a sense of purpose. Her work at the store became a source of pride and fulfillment. One day, a new customer walked in, a woman named Claire, who seemed to be around Sarah's age. Claire was looking for a part-time job and was directed to the store by a mutual acquaintance. Mr. Thompson decided to hire Claire, and soon, the two young women were working side by side. At first, Sarah was wary, unsure if she could trust Claire. But as they spent more time together, Sarah noticed something familiar in Claire's eyes, a reflection of her own past struggles and fears. One rainy afternoon, as they organized the back storage room, Claire hesitated and then turned to Sarah. Can I ask you something? She began, her voice trembling slightly. Sarah looked up, curiosity and concern in her eyes. Of course. What is it? Claire took a deep breath. I heard a bit about your story from Mr. Thompson. How you turned your life around. I'm struggling too. I feel so lost sometimes, and I don't know if I can ever get back on track. Sarah's heart ached as she listened. She saw herself in Claire, remembering the loneliness and despair she once felt. She stepped closer, placing a reassuring hand on Claire's shoulder. I've been there, Claire. It's hard, but you're not alone. You've taken the first step by asking for help, and that's incredibly brave." Claire's eyes filled with tears. "How did you do it? How did you find the strength to keep going?" Sarah smiled gently, her voice soft but steady. "It wasn't easy. I had to face my mistakes and accept that I needed to change. But I also had people who believed in me, Mr. Thompson, Officer Daniels, and now, even you. We find strength in the support of others and in believing that we can be better." The bond between Sarah and Claire grew stronger as they shared their stories and supported each other through their struggles. Claire found solace in Sarah's words and actions, realizing that change was possible with determination and support. One evening, after closing the store, Mr. Thompson noticed the budding friendship between the two young women. He approached them with a warm smile. "It's wonderful to see you both supporting each other. Claire, you're doing great, and Sarah, I'm proud of how far you've come." Sarah and Claire exchanged grateful smiles, feeling a renewed sense of hope and determination. They realized that together, they could face any challenge that came their way. As they walked home, the rain had stopped, leaving a fresh, clean scent in the air. The two friends talked about their dreams and plans for the future, finding comfort in knowing they had each other's backs. For Sarah, Claire's arrival was a reminder of the power of connection and the importance of reaching out to others. She knew that by helping Claire, she was also reinforcing her own journey of redemption and growth. And in that moment, under the shimmering streetlights, Sarah felt a profound sense of gratitude for the unexpected allies who had come into her life, guiding her towards a brighter future. The bond between Sarah and Claire continued to deepen, and their camaraderie brought a new lightness to their days at the store. However, as they grew closer, Claire began to notice a heaviness in Sarah's eyes that she couldn't quite understand. It was as if Sarah carried a burden, a secret that weighed her down despite the progress she had made. One evening, as they were closing up the store, Claire couldn't hold back her curiosity any longer. "Sarah, can I ask you something personal?" she said tentatively. Sarah looked up from the register, sensing the seriousness in Claire's tone. "Of course, Claire. What's on your mind?" Claire hesitated, then took a deep breath. "You've been such a support to me, and I feel like I know you well, but sometimes I feel like there's something you're not telling me. Is there something from your past that still haunts you?" Sarah's expression softened, and she sat down on a nearby stool, motioning for Claire to do the same. "There is something, Claire. Something I've been afraid to talk about. But maybe it's time I finally share it." Claire nodded, her eyes filled with concern and empathy. "I'm here for you, Sarah. Whatever it is, you can tell me." Sarah took a deep breath, her voice trembling as she began. "Before I met Mr. Thompson, before I got caught stealing, I was involved with some dangerous people. They offered me what I thought was a way out of my misery, but it was just another trap. I did things I'm not proud of, things that still haunt me." Claire reached out, taking Sarah's hand in hers. "What kind of things, Sarah?" Sarah's eyes glistened with tears as she continued. "I got involved in petty crimes, stealing, dealing small amounts of drugs. I thought I was surviving, but I was really just digging myself deeper into a hole. One night, things went too far, and someone got hurt because of me. I ran, and that's when I ended up at Mr. Thompson's store." Claire squeezed Sarah's hand, her own eyes filled with tears. "Sarah, I'm so sorry. You were doing what you thought you had to do to survive. But look at how far you've come. You're not that person anymore." Sarah nodded, grateful for Claire's understanding. I know, but sometimes it feels like the past is always there, waiting to drag me back. I worry that one day, it will catch up with me. Claire's grip tightened, her voice firm. We're in this together, Sarah. Your past doesn't define you. You've changed, and you've helped me change too. We'll face whatever comes together. In that moment, Sarah felt a profound sense of relief. Sharing her darkest secret with Claire lifted a weight from her shoulders, and the bond between them grew even stronger. They sat in the dimly lit store, the silence filled with mutual understanding and support. As they locked up and walked home, the night air felt different, lighter, more hopeful. Sarah realized that by facing her past, she had taken another step toward healing. And with Claire by her side, she knew she could face whatever challenges the future held. Under the starry sky, the two friends walked hand in hand, their steps in sync, their hearts intertwined by shared pain and newfound strength. The path ahead was uncertain, but together, they felt invincible, ready to confront the shadows of the past and embrace the promise of a brighter tomorrow. Days turned into weeks, and the bond between Sarah and Claire continued to flourish. Yet, the shadows of Sarah's past never fully dissipated. One particularly crisp autumn evening, as they were about to close the store, an unexpected visitor walked in. The bell above the door chimed, and a chill ran down Sarah's spine. It was a face she never thought she would see again, Jason, the leader of the group she had once been involved with. Jason's presence was a stark reminder of the life Sarah had fought so hard to leave behind. He looked around the store with a smirk, his eyes finally settling on Sarah. Well, if it isn't little Sarah," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Didn't expect to find you playing shopkeeper." Claire, sensing the tension, moved closer to Sarah. "Can we help you with something?" she asked, her voice steady but cautious. Jason ignored Claire, his focus entirely on Sarah. "You disappeared on us, Sarah. You owe me. You owe us." Sarah's heart raced, but she stood her ground. "I don't owe you anything, Jason. That life is behind me." Jason's smirk faded, replaced by a menacing glare. "You think you can just walk away? You think we wouldn't find you?" Claire, never one to back down, stepped in front of Sarah. "She's not alone. If you have a problem, you deal with both of us." Jason laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "Cute. But this isn't a game, sweetheart. Sarah knows what she owes." Sarah felt the weight of Jason's words, the threat behind them. She had worked so hard to build a new life, to find a sense of peace and purpose. Now, it seemed like it could all unravel in an instant. But looking at Claire, standing so fiercely by her side, gave her strength. "I've changed, Jason," Sarah said, her voice steady. "And I'm not afraid of you anymore. You can threaten me all you want, but it won't change anything. I have people who care about me now, people who will stand with me." Jason's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, it seemed like he might lash out. But then, something in Sarah's unwavering gaze made him hesitate. He took a step back, his expression unreadable. "This isn't over," he said quietly, turning to leave. "We'll be seeing each other again." As the door closed behind him, the tension in the room lingered. Claire turned to Sarah, her eyes filled with concern. "Are you okay?" Sarah nodded, though her heart was still pounding. "I will be. Thank you, Claire. I don't know what I would have done without you." Claire hugged Sarah tightly, both of them finding comfort in each other's presence. "We're in this together, remember? No matter what." In the quiet that followed, Sarah felt a strange sense of relief. Jason's visit had been a stark reminder of her past, but it had also shown her how far she had come. She was no longer the scared, desperate girl who had fallen in with the wrong crowd. She was stronger now, surrounded by people who cared about her. And no matter what Jason or anyone else tried to do, she knew she wouldn't face it alone. The days following Jason's ominous visit were fraught with tension. Sarah tried to carry on as usual, but the lingering threat weighed heavily on her mind. Claire, ever the pillar of strength, remained close, offering words of encouragement and support. But both women knew that Jason's words were not empty threats. He would be back. One evening, as Sarah and Claire sat together in the cozy back room of the store, the phone rang. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. She hesitated, but Claire gave her a reassuring nod. Taking a deep breath, Sarah answered. "Hello?" Her voice was calm, but inside she was trembling. "Sarah, it's Jason," came the familiar, menacing voice. "We need to talk. Now." "What do you want, Jason?" Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her. "Meet me at the old warehouse, tonight. Alone. Or there will be consequences." The line went dead before Sarah could respond. Claire, who had been listening intently, immediately sensed the gravity of the situation. "You're not going alone, Sarah. We need to go to the police." Sarah shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "He said alone, Claire. I can't risk him hurting you or anyone else." Claire took Sarah's hands in hers, her grip firm and reassuring. "We need help, Sarah. This isn't something you can handle alone. We have to trust someone." Reluctantly, Sarah agreed. Together, they went to the local police station and explained the situation to Officer Johnson, a kind-hearted and attentive officer who had always been supportive of the local community. After hearing Sarah's story, Officer Johnson nodded solemnly. "We'll help you, Sarah. But you need to trust us. We'll set up a plan to ensure your safety." The plan was simple but effective. Sarah would go to the warehouse as instructed, but the police would be close by, ready to intervene at the first sign of trouble. Claire insisted on being there too, refusing to leave Sarah's side. As they approached the warehouse later that night, the air was thick with tension. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest, but she felt a strange sense of calm knowing Claire and the police were nearby. Jason was already there, his figure silhouetted against the dim light of the warehouse. "You're late," he snarled as Sarah approached. "I came, didn't I?" Sarah replied, standing her ground. "What do you want, Jason?" Jason stepped closer, his eyes cold and calculating. "I want what's owed to me." "You think you can just walk away and start over?" "It doesn't work like that." Before Sarah could respond, there was a sudden movement from the shadows. Officer Johnson and his team emerged, surrounding Jason. "Jason Carter, you're under arrest for extortion and threats," Officer Johnson declared, his voice firm and authoritative. Jason's eyes widened in shock and anger. "You set me up," he spat at Sarah. Sarah held her head high, a newfound strength in her voice. "No, Jason. I stood up for myself. And I won't let you or anyone else take that away from me." As the police led Jason away, Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her. She turned to Claire, who was watching from a distance, and smiled through her tears. Claire rushed to her side, enveloping her in a warm embrace. "It's over, Sarah. You're safe now." Sarah nodded, holding Claire tightly. "I couldn't have done it without you." "Thank you." In that moment, surrounded by the support and protection of those who cared for her, Sarah felt a profound sense of peace. She had faced her past, stood up to her fears, and come out stronger on the other side. And with Claire by her side, she knew she could face whatever the future held. With Jason finally behind bars, a heavy weight was lifted from Sarah's shoulders. The store, which had once felt like a prison, now felt like a sanctuary. It was a place where she could rebuild her life, free from the shadows of her past. The support from the community was overwhelming. Customers who had heard about her ordeal came in with kind words, bringing flowers and homemade treats. They were small gestures, but they meant the world to Sarah, reinforcing her sense of belonging and safety. One morning, as the first light of dawn filtered through the windows, Sarah and Claire sat together in the small back office, sipping coffee. The atmosphere was calm, filled with the soft hum of the city waking up outside. Sarah glanced at Claire, who was flipping through a stack of papers with a thoughtful expression. "I've been thinking," Claire said, breaking the comfortable silence. "We should expand the store. Offer more services, maybe even start a community program." Sarah looked at her friend, surprised. "You really think we can do that?" Claire smiled, her eyes sparkling with determination. "I know we can. We've faced so much already. This is our chance to give back and build something truly special." The idea filled Sarah with excitement. She could see it clearly, a place where people could come not just to shop, but to connect, to find support and friendship. It was a vision that felt right, one that resonated deeply with her newfound strength and purpose. They spent the next few weeks planning and organizing. Sarah reached out to local artists, inviting them to display their work in the store. Claire connected with social workers and community leaders, setting up workshops and support groups. The store began to transform, its walls adorned with vibrant paintings and its shelves stocked with handcrafted goods. One evening, as they prepared for the grand reopening, Sarah stood at the front of the store, looking around in awe. The space was filled with laughter and chatter, a warm glow emanating from every corner. She spotted familiar faces, neighbors, friends, even a few new customers drawn in by the buzz. Claire walked up beside her, slipping an arm around her shoulders. "Look at what we've created," she said softly. Sarah nodded, tears of joy welling in her eyes. "I couldn't have done this without you, Claire. You've been my rock through everything." "And you," Claire replied, squeezing her gently, "are one of the strongest people I know." "This is just the beginning, Sarah. There's so much more ahead." As the evening drew to a close, Sarah took a moment to herself, stepping outside into the cool night air. She looked up at the stars, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. The journey had been long and painful, but it had led her to this moment, a moment of peace, of triumph, of hope. Sarah closed her eyes, breathing in the crisp night air. She felt Claire's presence beside her, a comforting reminder that she was not alone. Together, they had faced the darkness and come out stronger on the other side. With a heart full of hope and a spirit unbroken, Sarah knew that this new beginning was just the start of a beautiful journey. And with Claire by her side, she was ready to embrace whatever the future held. In the months that followed, Sarah and Claire's store became a beacon of hope and unity within the community. The grand reopening had been just the beginning. Every day, the store was filled with the joyful bustle of customers, friends, and neighbors, each contributing to the vibrant tapestry of life within its walls. One afternoon, as Sarah was helping a customer pick out a hand-woven blanket, she heard the sound of a familiar voice. Turning, she saw Claire speaking with a young woman at the counter. The woman had a hopeful, albeit nervous, expression, and Sarah's heart swelled with recognition. It was Lisa, the young thief whose desperate act had sparked a chain of events that led to this moment. Lisa approached Sarah with a shy smile. "Hi, Sarah," she said softly. "I just wanted to thank you for giving me a second chance. I found a job, and I'm taking classes. My life is finally turning around." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as she embraced Lisa. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. "You have come so far. Remember, you always have a place here." The store had indeed become more than just a business. It was a sanctuary, a place of second chances and new beginnings. Sarah and Claire had created a community where everyone felt welcome, supported, and loved. The walls, once silent witnesses to Sarah's struggles, now echoed with laughter, music, and the vibrant conversations of people connecting and growing together. As the seasons changed, so did the store. New projects, workshops, and events continuously breathed life into the space. The community garden out back flourished, providing fresh produce and a tranquil retreat for anyone needing a moment of peace. Local artists held classes, teaching their crafts and inspiring creativity. Support groups met regularly, offering a safe haven for those facing life's many challenges. One evening, Sarah and Claire stood together at the entrance of the store, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink. The soft glow bathed the store, creating an almost magical ambience. They were silent for a moment, each lost in their thoughts, reflecting on how far they had come. Claire turned to Sarah, her eyes filled with warmth and gratitude. "We did it, Sarah. We created something beautiful." Sarah smiled, her heart full. "Yes, we did. And I couldn't have done it without you." Claire took Sarah's hand in hers, giving it a gentle squeeze. "And I couldn't have done it without you, my friend." As the sun dipped below the horizon, Sarah felt a deep sense of peace and fulfillment. The road had been long and fraught with hardship, but every step had led her to this moment, a moment of profound joy and promise. Looking forward, Sarah knew that there would be challenges ahead, but she also knew that she was not alone. With Claire by her side and a community that had become family, she was ready to face whatever the future held. Together, they would continue to grow, to heal, and to thrive. The store was more than a testament to their resilience. It was a symbol of the boundless possibilities that lay ahead. And with hearts full of hope and hands ready to help, Sarah and Claire knew that their journey was far from over. It was, in many ways, just beginning.